Hello, and welcome back to the Performance Marketing Unlock podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joseph Arthur, PMW's Multimedia Editor. Joining me on today's show, we have PMW's editor, Robin Langford, as well as our news reporter, Reem Macari, joining me in the studio to talk about the latest earnings reports from some of the biggest tech platforms from around the globe. And we dig into what it might mean for the future of the industry. And we touch on some of the top line stories that have already come from these earnings reports, namely Meta's superintelligence race, what Apple's doing to try and compete in the AI arms race, and more. So, without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Performance Marketing Unlock podcast. Robin and Reem, g'day. Welcome back to the studio for another episode of the Performance Marketing Unlock podcast. How are we both?
Yeah, I'm good.
Can't speak for me, I'm good.
Robin,
I'm good.
You look good. Everyone looks good. Yeah, we're all feeling as good as we look.
I'm wearing exactly the same clothes as the last podcast. That's terrible. I totally forgot.
This is something I've been noticing lately. Every time I go through the video and look for sort of social clips, I've got a rotation of about 3 outfits that pop up on the podcast pretty consistently.
You need to bring back the themed ones, like the Christmas one where we all went in with Christmas jumpers and you had your Stranger Things one. You should start making us dress in themes.
It's just every week.
Yeah.
Halloween's coming up, so...
Oh, that'd be a good one.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a spooky season episode.
Yeah.
I was saying before, we're definitely outclassed by you, the Robin and the Blazer.
Well, yeah, I've gone professional today, obviously, because we're talking about professional topics, so have to for the podcast.
No, fair enough. Just to impress, maybe Robin and I can take some notes. The focus of this discussion is we're talking about we've recently been privy to a lot of the big tech platforms' Q2 earnings reports from Q2 2025, namely Amazon, Alphabet, Google's parent company, Meta, Apple, and Microsoft. We also covered Netflix as a sort of CTV representative, but as they sit slightly adjacent to the rest of big tech, we're going to focus on just those 5. Some of the top line takeaways: Amazon had the most Q2 2025 revenue at $167.7 billion, if you don't mind. And Meta saw the most year-on-year growth from Q2 2024 to Q2 2025 at 22%. Thoughts, feelings, emotions? Any big takeaways?
Well, I mean, they all performed very well this quarter. Overall,
they all
of
grew.
them, they all had year-on-year revenue. They're all investing in AI, which isn't a shock. That's the overall theme. It's become central to every one of those companies' strategy, where I think the earlier reports from Q4 last year, we were seeing it more from, I think Meta was doing more investment in AI, but now it's all of them. The only one that wasn't so much focused on AI, although it's not really, considered a big tech platform, would be Netflix. And Netflix is focused more on ad revenue, so they're very much investing in the new ad tech platform that they launched, and now it's been steadily ongoing for a few months. They obviously have their ad tier, and that's their main focus, while the rest is more on just AI.
Yeah, interestingly, of the 5, Apple has suffered the slowest growth at 9.6%, and Reem, in your story here as well, it sort of slightly reported a little bit of a slowdown in growth compared to its 5-year trend and alongside its other big tech peers. Robin, you covered a story earlier today that indicated maybe perhaps one of the elements of why that might be the case. Namely, I suppose, when you compare Apple's investment in AI compared to its competitors, it's been a little bit slower, fair to say.
Yeah, they've back in their last conference, or 2 conferences ago, they launched Apple Intelligence, which was supposed to be their answer to a lot of the other big platforms, Google Gemini and ChatGPT. But it was actually kind of piggybacking off ChatGPT, like integrated into Siri searches. And obviously Siri was one of the first of examples of AI bots and chatbots, but it's feeling a little bit dated now, and the answer it's returning isn't necessarily really Apple customers are feeling it's a bit out of date. So it seems, this is early reports actually, that they are getting together a new AI team for an answers engine, which is going to be powered within Apple, and that's going to power a lot of their new searches, and it's going to be their own sort of bespoke version of ChatGPT that's powered by Apple itself, and that's the big difference. And I feel like they've perhaps been a bit caught out. Apple prides itself on being a bit like, we'll come in when we're ready, when the new technology, and we'll kind of own this space.
They
And
haven't been scared to do things a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think they like to go the Apple way. I think that's one of their appeals. But I think AI is moving perhaps a little bit too fast, even for them this time around. So they're kind of, I think, changing their tact. And it might be Apple Intelligence is already going to move on to something beyond that pretty soon. So keep your eyes out for something new there.
Well, that's exciting because I mean, I have an iPhone and I never use Siri, ever.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, I've also got an iPhone and rarely, if ever, use Siri. Whereas a lot of these competing AI offerings have, even to a lot like me, ChatGPT and Gemini have become a little bit more frequently used by myself. I think certainly a lot more than Siri. Goodness.
I mean, they're more convenient, and I think it just comes down to convenience at the end of the day. So if they're able to make this new AI chatbot a lot more convenient than ChatGPT and Gemini, then I'm sure it's gonna, even if they're a bit behind now, I'm sure people will then adapt. But there's another interesting point as well, which is how much they're investing, how much each of these companies is investing in AI. So Meta said that it's forecasting a sharp acceleration in infrastructure spend for AI in 2025 and 2026, which is not a shock for Meta. And Alphabet is also investing 85 billion on capex for 2025, and then Microsoft is reinvesting in cloud and AI. So they might have a bit of a slowdown in the next few months, but I think that's just more of them redirecting their spend towards AI, and then they're going to have that growth a lot later, or much more significant growth a lot later.
So we're saying a few of these platforms have sort of hit a bit of a peak in some of their innovation. Now they're just relaying some of those fresh foundations to lead to further rapid innovation down the line, but they've just got to sort of have a bit of a period of just resetting their base and infrastructure, as you said there. While we touch on Meta, they have been the leaders in many respects in terms of the AI innovation space among these big tech players, and they're definitely not slowing down their investment in this. We've seen some wild news stories across some of the more traditional sort of consumer-facing press in the last couple of weeks. Mark Zuckerberg's Meta offered a 24-year-old AI whiz, which 24 years old really hurts. That stings a little bit. That makes
what are you two doing? God.
Yeah, I know. It makes us feel pretty hopeless. Matt Dietke, apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong, recently dropped out of computer science at the University of Washington. It seems a lot of these just tech whizzes are dropping out of universities and going on to bigger and better things before they get done. It's very much the sort of Bill Gates school of university there. But he was actually initially offered $125 million over 4 years to come and work with Meta. He rejected that, and about a week later, Zuckerberg doubled the offer to roughly $250 million as a compensation package to join Meta, which has been accepted. So they've got their whizz-kid to help build out Meta's superintelligence program. But Reem, you had another story that came across your desk that was even more dramatic.
Yes, I mean, I'm trying to find this person's age, but I don't know. But I mean, they look quite young in the picture. But so Mark Zuckerberg offered this person called Andrew Tulloch, I think.
It looks like Andrew Tulloch.
Tulloch.
Yeah.
A $1 billion job offer, which is crazy, and he rejected it. So he's a graduate of the University of Cambridge.
I can see it here. Meta, led by Mark Zuckerberg, hiring top AI experts, from a lot of coming from OpenAI and Microsoft, which is a very interesting move in this AI arms race. But Andrew Tulloch rejected, this is according to news18.com, a $1.5 billion offer to join Meta. So it's on a bit of a poaching spree at the moment to get these AI whiz kids, as we'd put it. Robin, what do you make of all this?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the space race, isn't it? It's the new AI age. And it's about owning that talent and owning the space, which we know is going to accelerate only faster. And I was just reading an interview actually in The Guardian with Demis Hassabis, who is the chief CEO of DeepMind Technologies, which is Google, Alphabet-owned company, which famously about 10 years ago was beating all these Go masters at the old game of Go, and like how far AI has come since then is amazing. And obviously people remember chess and Deep Blue and all that back in the old days. But he's obviously a real grandfather of AI, and he's been talking about it's not just artificial intelligence. It's going to be the age of artificial general intelligence, which is when it's basically where AI is going to train AI and it's not going to need humans. And he actually thinks we're at the cusp of civilization now, where in the next few years, we're basically the end of an era, and AI is going to be just everywhere pretty soon. And that's what these tech platforms are really doing. They're trying to buy up the best people, and that's why they're investing £80 billion in a ridiculous amount.
Wasn't it Mark Zuckerberg who said that thing about at some point AI is going to be so developed that advertisers don't even need to think of an idea anymore. All they need to do is like insert a brief, and then AI will be used to create whatever it is from.
Advertising
Definitely
doesn't require people, essentially.
And that certainly upset a few agencies.
Yes.
And that is perhaps one of the bigger stories.
Well, it prompted my last trip here in London out to Meta's offices, where they had a press conference, and they had a lot of agencies and delegates in attendance too, and there was a lot of assurances there. It was to promote the launch of their latest batch of sort of AI ad tools for brands and advertisers to put to work. And some of those questions were asked about Zuckerberg's comments, and they were sort of trying to assure people that as far as they're concerned, the timeline is, it's using AI to help you and not replace you. But certainly Meta's PR team are constantly trying to keep up with what the rest of the community might be saying within that company, and what Zuckerberg might be putting to headlines as well. Because
the word vomits.
There's not always consistency there.
Yeah.
But he's been proven to be pretty true to his word in a lot of respects in the past. So shouldn't have us all worried.
Certainly. I mean, I think the tension between the big six agencies and the big tech companies is really coming to a fore now. And I was just looking at some statistics. I think the holdcos in 2019 commanded 44% of all ad spend in the US, and that's gone down in 2024 to 29%. And the people that have come in to take that spend haven't necessarily been the smaller agencies, it's been the platforms. It's been direct spends from advertisers just spending directly on the platforms without agencies. It's happening more and more. And the classic thing is the Google rep talks to the advertiser and says, you don't need your agency. You to advertise directly on our big tech platform, and we'll do it for you, which is kind of like what Zuckerberg's saying en masse now. So that trend is happening, where you're just going to people spending much more directly on the platforms. And is that really the big story outside of the WPP Omnicom Publicis story? It's actually the transfer of spend from agencies directly to platforms.
It was a big theme in our 3 Tough Questions investigative series that shows we were onto this a few months ago at this point, but it was usurping those bigger agencies. And it seems that certainly independent agencies, the indies as they call them, are feeling pretty good about their position in all of this turmoil. But there's certainly a way that they get surpassed and sort of, deviated against just as much as some of these big holdcos.
Yeah.
So I think all the agencies need to be careful.
Yeah, significantly the holdcos fell more than the independent agencies. So I feel like a lot
but
when
the
we talk to
fell
them,
as well.
only slightly by a few percentage points, whereas holdcos have fallen by about 20%.
I mean,
so
that's a dramatic shift, isn't it?
Exactly. And the indie agencies we talk to tend to feel in a slightly better situation if they've got a strong offering, particularly mid-sized indie agencies.
What we get from the holdcos is
Yes.
what we can get is usually, they speak through very pursed lips over there at the moment because of all that's going on. But when we do, there's certainly murmurings of things are not all as they would hope them to be at the minute. And these big tech platforms, well, it's growth on growth on growth, and they're investing incredibly rapidly. And speaking of that investment, just a little bit more information on Andrew Tulloch that I found here. This is from the Wall Street Journal, and thank goodness it does seem that he's a little bit older than his $250 million man, the counterpart now at Meta, but he was poached directly from OpenAI, and he was a key role in developing GPT-4 and GPT 4.5 when he was at OpenAI before being poached to Meta, where he actually spent over a decade previously. So a lot of big movements to try and keep up with, a lot of talent being hired in the AI space. Moving on though, because I want to give some airtime to the sleeping giant that dominated last week's episode. Don't look, it's Amazon, Robin. You immediately look concerned. I don't want them to go under the radar again, which is something that they're quite good at, but The biggest revenue for this quarter was Amazon with 167.7 billion.
With Amazon, they said that this contributed to Q2, but we're going to see most of the effect of this for Q3. It was Prime Day, which ended up being very successful. It was the first year where they've extended it from 2 to 4 days. It was also very much influencer creator led, and there was a lot of purchases that were coming on. Lots of people were into it, which is obviously, I mean, it's, if you have any kind of like discount event, that's going to appeal to a lot of people. So Prime Day was very successful, and then they're also investing in AI too. So they're one of the platforms that are where they're going to be using AI to help the platform make it easier in terms of like I think they mentioned this for Prime Day as well, where it was search
Alexa
recommendations
Plus to the expansion of the Alexa Plus service, Rufus in the fold as well.
Yeah.
A few different sort of logistics and operational AI tools they'll be introducing as well. And I can see here a new AWS agreement with some big new clients, including Airbnb and PepsiCo. So 4 days of Prime Day, it seems like that's immediately paid off for them. So maybe we get Prime Week before we know it.
But I mean, I think it's going to end up losing its appeal the more they extend it.
I think so.
Yeah, I think they need to limit it. I think having it as 2, maybe 4 days is a good thing. But the thing is, the reason Prime Day is so appealing is because it's this once a year event where people rush to buy discounts. But if you have it as a week-long thing, that's going to be spread out across a week. It's no longer going to be this like high volume 2-day period. It's the same where if they were to have multiple Prime Days throughout the year, it won't have the same effect.
I imagine among consumers, it's very popular because of the broader economy at the moment, because everyone's purse strings are reasonably tight. There's the ongoing cost of living crisis. Consumers are quite happy to get 4 days instead of 2 of Prime Day and to get these cheap deals. But perhaps as the economy improves, if it improves, and people don't have to look to these sales events, don't have to rely on them so much for some of their bigger spending, maybe we'll see it become less influential. I don't know, but it points to an exciting Q4. It's early, seasonal sale event success, doesn't it, Robin?
Yeah, I mean, look out for PMW's retail playbook again this year, where we will try and isolate those peak shopping season times again for people, which is also, will we have, I mean, last year actually for the peak shopping season, we found out with the ONS that it didn't really peak, actually. Brits didn't spend that much last year. Not as such. And it was kind of spread a bit. So it'll be interesting to see this year, especially with the tariffs and the deals that have been going on. There's a lot more uncertainty as well this year. It's not exactly a thriving economy right now. I don't think anyone would say that. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. In terms of how Amazon does, I need to add a little caveat to we're looking at revenue at the moment for Amazon, and obviously they do have the highest revenue of all the 5 big tech companies, but they're actually profit-wise they are below Alphabet and Apple because they have such high overheads because they're a physical company, as in they sell physical stock and stuff like that. So in terms of that, they aren't, but they still grow. They're still growing very fast, which is sort of good.
It's a good point. Yeah. Having their finger in so many pies does require a lot of investment, effort, and overhead. So the growth and of course the revenue that they've seen. It doesn't come cheaply.
and in terms of the ad spend and ad revenue, sort of Alphabet and Meta still dominate, but Amazon is on the way up, as we mentioned in the last podcast. So.
Speaking of Alphabet, they had a reasonably strong quarter too. So the Google's parent company, their growth was pretty consistent as well, which shows that most of their channels are working. So that's across Google Search, YouTube ads, Google subscriptions, platforms and devices, Google Cloud. All of those I've mentioned there achieved double-digit growth year on year and this quarter. So that's really exciting for them. And of course, they've had some really new and exciting AI-driven features announced recently. AI overviews and AI mode coming to the UK recently was huge news this week that had a lot of the industry up in arms.
I really don't like it.
We've experienced AI mode. We've had it for a week. What do we think?
I'm not into it. I haven't used it properly. I don't like that it's now taken over where all is supposed to be, because I feel like whenever I want to go to what I actually want to search, it's just taking me to AI mode. And also, what's the point? There's already Gemini. Like, there's I don't get it. I'm personally not into
I think it offers a little bit more detail and nuance. So if you're seeking that, whereas AI overviews I really enjoy because it just gives you the bullet points,
yes,
what you need to know.
I mean,
but it's pretty
for publishers. That's another question. But,
we'll talk more in the future episodes about what's going to happen with traffic and is it the end of CTRs. We'll get into that down the line. But in terms of my personal experience with AI overviews, it is very top line. And I think the idea behind AI mode is you can go beyond just some of that top line search and do some more follow-up questions and try and do a little bit of a cross-examination of results and offer a bit more interrogation, if you will, to what comes back from Google results.
Your point, Mim, is really important. I think you made something similar earlier I was going to talk about, which is who's going to win this AI race isn't just going to be who spends the most, but who removes friction the best and in the best way for the user. Yeah. And when I look at my emails and Google says, I can write your email for you, I'm like, no, you're not. This is very personal to me. AI, when you need it and when you want it, is quite important. If it kind of shoves it down your throat when you're doing something else, it can feel intrusive. And that's when the trust issue comes by. Like, do I want to trust it with this level? And so I think that user experience is probably going to be the most key, as much as it is about the power of the AI and what it can do. It's how the user can eventually use it. And that goes with the marketer's side as well. It goes in how most useful it's going to be for marketers in terms of taking away that friction, taking away those problems really easily without forcing it upon you in places you don't want it, I think.
Yeah, 100%. It's just not being annoying.
Not being annoying. That's good.
Now, before we finish up and move on to a very special and very exciting edition of our Resell Me a Pen challenge. I know you're excited for that one, Reem. Microsoft, we haven't said anything. They are another one of the big tech players. Is there anything we want to add on the Microsoft front that we haven't? They had a reasonable return from their reports. 76.4 billion in growth and 18%.
I'll be honest, I wasn't really going to add something on Microsoft, but I did have another point just from the big tech report.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Which is that Meta mentioned something interesting, which is that it's still trying to navigate EU ad regulations, and I think that's something we're going to see across all platforms, because obviously, like with Meta, recently said that it refused to sign the EU AI Code of Practice. And then it also stopped all political ads in the EU because of the regulations, because it's Google and Meta that has stopped doing that on the platform. And I think that's going to change a lot of what they do. It's going to impact a lot of the decisions that they make moving forward. So it's just something to keep an eye on.
It's certainly, they're all going to be hip to that as well. No one's going to be able to avoid the influence of those regulations.
And that is the inevitable thing. Forget about big tech versus big six. It's big tech versus governments. It's going to be even more of a thing over time as big tech becomes more influential.
AI innovation versus regulation.
And we're seeing this in the UK. We haven't even talked about the Online Safety Act and stuff, but as regulation is really going to come up against some of this AI stuff, particularly. So it's going to be huge over the next. I think it's going to be. We talked about cookies for a long time, but I think there's going to be new battles that are going to be along those sort of lines of privacy, looking after the consumer versus innovation.
Yeah,
that's going to be huge.
Yeah. Sorry, Microsoft. More important things to talk about.
Gosh.
I will give it some top line things, just so we haven't completely ignored it. But it actually had the second most growth year on year at 18% out of the big five, which is good. And its operating income rose by 23% and net income grew by 24%. So it had a reasonably strong quarter as well. Most of that was driven by growth across Microsoft Cloud and AI. So, some interesting takeaways from the big tech Q2 earnings reports. But moving on to more important things, Reem.
The most important part of the episode, obviously.
We have got the editorial edition of PMW's Resell Me a Pen challenge. To refresh perhaps yourself and the listeners of how it works, you've got 60 seconds to resell me an outdated product or service. Before I put you on the clock, do you want to reveal to myself and maybe Robin, I don't know if you guys have spoken about it,
it's a surprise
what it is you're going to attempt to resell today?
Do I have to tell you, or do you want to just find out in the pitch?
I want to keep it consistent to the guests, so do tell me what it is. Because I don't want anyone thinking I'm giving anyone special treatment.
Okay, so So you do want to know.
Yeah. Let me know what we're going with.
It's the Wii Fit.
The Wii Fit.
Yes.
Oh, I did have one of these back in the day.
Me
Brilliant.
too.
All right. So 60 seconds to resell us the Wii Fit, Reem. I'm going to give you a little warning at 30 seconds left and at 10 seconds remaining. Your time starts now.
Are you tired of paying extortionate gym membership fees? Sick of dragging yourself to the gym after a 9 to 5 only to get home too late to sleep like a functional adult? Remember when working out was actually fun? Let's bring that energy back. Reinvest your money into Wii Fit, the full-body fitness experience that turns your living room into a personal wellness studio. With options like yoga, balance games, and aerobic routines, it blends movement, entertainment, and just the right amount of sweat. And bonus, it won't lie to your face. It'll just brutally tell you that you're obese at the age of 12.
Wow.
Not talking from personal experience or anything.
Oh, dear me. The Wii Fit. 38 seconds down, so 22 seconds remaining. That is always bonus points, so congrats for that, Reem. A very well prepared and scripted out pitch, as we can see there, so I appreciate someone taking the time and effort. I had the Wii Fit back in the day. I really loved the Wii Fit. Couldn't help but think the person that got it for me was trying to send a subtle message about my fitness at the time, which is always the risk when you get someone a gift of that persuasion. The one thing about it was I can't remember if it sort of helped me get fitter than I was.
It was just fun. It was a nice activity. I used to play the tennis on it, and I would also do that balance game where you do that and you do the steps.
Yeah. Wii tennis in general, that was a real sweet spot for the gaming, and that was about as physical as a video game could ever get. Robin, your experience with the Wii Fit, if any?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's more like it's a way of playing computer games that is also moving you around as well, so it's not as like as sedate an activity. So yeah. Are they still around? I mean, I remember during lockdown, Peloton got massive, didn't they? And that was a kind of like, it was in your room a cycle, but you're kind of interacting with other people. And I feel like nowadays maybe there's more of a sort of interactive element, so you're in a gym class with other people, because that can be a motivating factor for getting fit, can't it? Like being around other people. So maybe that's something. But yeah,
something I like about the Wii Fit as well is sometimes all these interactive games and the interactive element has gone down the augmented reality and VR road. And obviously with that comes some of the inherent danger of losing yourself within your living room or the space. You've got to do a lot of setting up to make sure that you're not going to go running into a wall or knock over a portrait or something while you're doing it. The Wii Fit did keep you tied to reality and that space. So that's something that might be viewed
and cost
as a benefit.
per use.
Yeah, cost per use
is great. You don't have to pay for a gym membership. Just use a Wii Fit.
It's probably cheaper than a month's gym membership.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, way cheaper actually.
And more fun.
I've done a little search here to see, because I was intrigued, does the Wii Fit help lose weight? And there's a few Reddit threads digging into it, and it seems that there's, like all these things, mixed reviews. But certainly the Wii Fit, I mean, that brings me back to my childhood. I really enjoyed it at the time, and the tennis games, they were things that got super competitive among myself and my siblings. So congratulations, Reem. I think that's a reasonably strong pitch.
Thank you.
Certainly get bonus points for the time it took as well. It shows some of our guests that often it pays to prepare.
Yes.
Robin, what did you think? You did the very first Resell Me a Pen challenge, so now you've both done one. How do you think Reem's compared?
Very good, very well prepared, and I think you've got. I'm just a bit worried when you started that off saying, "Oh, you're really tired when you get back." I thought you were like telling me something then about how tired you are from work and don't have any energy to do anything else. So I took that kind of personally. Beyond that, though, no, it was very well prepared, persuasive, and some good points.
Amazing. All right. Well, you've got our super producer, Nav, to thank you for that as well, as it was her idea to put you on the clock. With all that said and done, thanks very much for joining me. As always, Reem Macari and Robin Langford. Until next time.
Thank you.
And that concludes this episode of the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. A big thank you to my guests this week, Reem Macari, PMW's news reporter, and Robin Langford, PMW's editor, for joining me in the studio to talk about the big tech platforms' latest earnings reports for Q2 of 2025 and what that means for the future of the industry and what it means for the future of the globe, particularly when it comes to all things AI. Of course, a big shout out to Reem as well for taking on this week's edition of the Resell Me a Pen Challenge. I think that was a really fun edition that was missed last week. So I'm glad that we got it back into this episode, and well done to Reem. Of course, as always, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you, the loyal listener, for tuning in each and every week as you do. We will be back in 7 days' time with another episode of the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. In the meantime, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice and go over and give us some love across social media. We're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, and of course the BMW website. With all that said, have an amazing week, and you'll be hearing from me again very shortly. Bye for now.